Hello, this is Mrs. Rock, and I will be creating a video today giving you instructions on a basic block printing technique using rubber blocks as our basic framework. But before we get to carving and all that fun stuff, we have to create a concept and an idea that we're going to carve out. And for that, we're going to need basically a piece of paper or your sketchbook to develop your ideas on, and you'll need a pencil. And I'm actually going to use the block just to serve as a border for my sketch. So I have my rubber block here, and it's a 4x6 block, and I have my piece of paper, and I'm going to take my block and I'm just going to put it on my piece of paper here, and as you can see, and I'm just going to outline it. And I'm going to do another one on the bottom because the goal is to create 2 concept sketches. Now, the theme we're going to be working on is what we've been working on in our class, which is thinking about art as activism and social justice ideas and so forth. So the words that I've been thinking about are things like equity and education. So I played around with my computer and came up with this one idea, equity, and these 2 lines which represented equality. So very simple, coming up with a word and then just lines to represent that. We don't want to get super complex, okay? We want to, what's the simplest symbol we can come up with that's going to illustrate our idea. Now, obviously, not everyone's going to have like a word processing, computer available to them and then to get to print it out. So we have the tool of our pencil and our paper. And I also have a purple packet for everybody. And in that purple packet are things like ideas, different words related to social justice that hopefully will stir up some ideas, for you that you can think about. And I just want you to come up with 2 words that are important to you or meaningful to you. It could be the word fair. It could be the word love. It could be the word peace. Whatever inspires you, okay? And I also have a bunch of different fonts and typefaces, symbols that you can use to reference. If you like different kinds of fonts and letters to symbolize your word, you can do that. And then you can put those together. You can mix and match the typefaces and the different fonts that you would like for your word. And then you can obviously come up with your own type of style and font, okay? Okay, so we have 2 possibilities here. I have my piece of paper that has the 2 4x6 rectangles. And I also have a tracing paper, okay? Now, on this tracing paper, what I can do is I can put my original printout behind it and copy that onto here. The tracing paper is what we're actually going to use to transfer our drawing to the rubber block. So even if you come up with your drawing here, you're going to be tracing it eventually, and then I will show you how you transfer it to the rubber block, okay? So I'll show you the 2 different ways you can use. And the reason I want to give you that option is because some people may not want to necessarily work directly on the piece of paper. You might want to work on the tracing paper. And that's mainly for those of you who really, for example, want to use the handouts like directly, at which point, for example, if I wanted the word, let's say love, and I wanted to use this font, okay, I might take my tracing paper And I might, you know, I copy I might want to copy, you know, the L, and then I want to do the O. Don't forget though that you do have the limit of a 4x6 for whatever you decide to design. So right on my tracing paper, I'm just going to give myself that border so I don't forget. So for love, I'm going to do the classic heart symbol, okay, that everybody recognizes as a symbol for love. And I'm going to sketch it into my words here as part of my words. I'm done, and I want to transfer this, okay? Now, as I look at this, I'm like, you know what? I want it more centered. Is it too late? It's not too late. All I do is adjust. I use my 4x6 and I adjust it and I move it over a little because I want it a little more centered. So that it's a little more centered. Now, if I'm ready to transfer it onto this, all I do is take that pencil drawing, okay, and I just place it on the rubber block. The pencil part where I drew on needs to face down because that graphite is going to transfer. So I put it where I want on my block. Another chance to adjust where you want it, by the way. And I basically do a rough sketch, or I just go right over that pencil line so that it presses down onto the rubber block. Okay. It moved a little when I transferred that. You really want to tape this down. So when we do this in class, we'll be sure to tape down. Okay, so I'm gonna pick it up carefully. I transferred it onto the block. So just remember facing backwards so that when I open it, it should have transferred onto the rubber block. And that. So now I have my rubber block, and I also have my bench hook. You'll have a different kind of bench hook, but it's used as a safety guard so that when you're carving, you don't accidentally, you know, carve into your hand. You want to be very careful with these tools and make sure you use all safety precautions. You'll be getting these student grade carving tools, okay? You have a very wide, round tipped carving tool, okay? You have a V-shaped one, okay? And a smaller version also of that, okay? So these help you, there's 3 different sizes, and they're basically used to carve out different sections. So if, for example, I want to carve this whole part out, I might want to use the larger one, but you can also use the V-shaped medium one, you know, depending on if you want texture in your print. And I'll show you a little bit of that because I like texture in my print. But sometimes some people want super, super clean cut, strong visual that will produce a very high contrast image, and so they might want it super clean edged. Okay, I will show you how I'm gonna carve this. I'm gonna start working on the heart, and I'm gonna use the small carving tool to go in the tight spaces. Okay, so for example, this area right here, I'm gonna use that to go right in there. And I carefully just carve that out. Okay, see, I'm carving that out. And I'm gonna carve around, begin. I'm actually gonna use the V. It's a little bit that the edge of that is more pronounced. And you don't want to go super, super deep. There's no need to go super deep because it's, you know, it's a fairly thin rubber piece. So if you like gouge it out, it's gonna like not be as sturdy. So you only need to go down a certain amount, okay? I'm carving away here, and I'm starting to just carve the edge. So one thing I wanted to say, especially if this is your first time carving, is to not rush it. When you're carving, once you take out a section, it's not coming back. Okay, so I have carved out the heart for my love symbol. However, if you look at it right now, if we were to print this, the word love wouldn't actually show up. Maybe part of the outline, a little bit of the E there and some of the V, but this right here would not. It's all flat here. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna carve out just this line here so that the rest of the V can show up, and it'll actually show up as a white line, but the letters themselves here will be black or whatever ink color I choose. Now, another cool trick in block printing is you can create what's called a rubbing of your carving before you even ink it. So I'll show you how to do that. So if I wanted to test out my block and see how it looks, I'm going to create a rubbing. And I just take my tracing paper or even a piece of copy paper and just put the block down, and I put the paper on top. If you want to, you can, you know, get a piece of tape and tape down your paper so it doesn't move. But it's so small, you can also just hold it down. And there are two, you know, you can do a crayon. It's pretty simple, and just go over it. You can also use like a Conti stick, which all of you have in your kits. And so I just go over it, and I kind of started with the tip of the crayon, but I really meant to do the side. So you just lay it on its side here. So obviously in mine, I didn't carve any of the background, so to speak. So it would be solid color. And there's my rubbing, okay, of the piece. And you can see it so that it's both sides. You can see the backwards version and the right side version, okay? I want to show you a really quick version of also if I want just like the letters to be bold and stand out and carving around those letters. So I'm going to use my sample equity word to do that. Okay, so I put little references, just corners for where the border is, and then I outline the word equity and my equal symbol. And I'm actually, to save on a block, I'm just gonna carve this on the back. You can actually use the same block to carve more than one image. Graphite transfers really easily to block, and this is, I don't necessarily recommend this. I recommend you stick to the version I said, using your pencil, okay, to just trace that again. I'm just testing it out here. Sometimes it transfers with just a hand pressure by just rubbing on the graphite onto the board, and you don't necessarily have to do the pencil transfer. It's a little trick. Okay. And let's see if my little hand trick worked. Ta-da! That it worked. So I'm gonna now, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna carve everything around my two lines and the letters so that the letters and the equal symbols will be what stands out. I wanted to point out what just happened as I was carving. So my tip got stuck in the carving when I was doing it, and all you have to do is carefully, don't get cut with the sharp part. You'll see that it fits right inside. And what I do usually is on a hard surface, just make sure I don't put it on my hand. I don't try to force it with my hand. I find another safe surface to make sure it's secure again. Full transparency, as you can see, I accidentally carved into my Q here. There's nothing really I can do about it at this point. I'm just gonna kind of carefully try to continue to carve around it, and my Q will have a little nick in it, and that's okay. It's part of my fine art block print. Now that I have carved out my block, I'm ready to do a rubbing, sorry. I'm ready to do a rubbing of my block. There you have it, and what I realized is I forgot to carve that little part in the Y here. So I'm gonna go back to the carving board. Now I just wanna test out my little Y. I'm gonna just do it in another section, and okay. So there's my Y. Here it is before, here it is after. And I'm just gonna observe and see if there's any other parts that I wanna carve out. So there you have it. I've shown you the different ways of transferring things and drawing onto tracing paper using printed samples, and how to then transfer that onto the block using either, you know, your graphite pencil or even your hand, and then creating rubbings to test out your carving, and then carving out more areas as needed. As you can see, if you have just the text and you want that to stand out, then you got to carve around those letters. And if you want, you know, just more of a solid background with certain things to stand out, like that are just white or the color of the paper, you got to carve that out and leave the rest black. Also, you can just outline your letters if you'd like to for your piece. So there you have it, some basic drawing and printmaking techniques.